Welcome to Class with SKEUL, where Black American history, news, and real issues are taught with clarity, structure, and purpose. This is not surface-level content. This is a timeline, a record, a correction. Every episode is built to teach what was done, what was fought for, and what was taken. From revolts to wars, from policy to resistance, we break it down so it can be understood, remembered, and never rewritten. Because history that isn't taught clearly can be distorted, and history that is distorted can be used against the people it belongs to. Here, we focus on accuracy, on connection, on truth. Not just to inform, but to preserve. Not just to explain, but to expose. Because this isn't just about the past. It's about understanding the present and recognizing what continues. Each video is part of a larger structure, so nothing is isolated and nothing is forgotten. Stay focused, stay aware, stay connected. Cry aloud, spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and shew my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Isaiah 58:1.
Episode 2, The Forgotten Revolts Before 1700. Part 1, Resistance Spreads, 1500s to mid-1600s. After 1526, resistance did not disappear. It moved, adapted, and continued to grow. As Spanish, French, Dutch, and English powers expanded into North America during the 1500s and 1600s, Black people were brought into systems of forced labor across different regions. But no matter the location, one pattern remained constant: resistance. In Spanish Florida, beginning in the late 1500s and into the 1600s, Black people escaped bondage and moved south towards Spanish-controlled territory. Spain, competing with England, made a strategic decision. By the late 1600s, they offered freedom to enslaved people who escaped from English colonies and converted to Catholicism. This wasn't just policy, it was strategy. Escaped Black people became part of Spain's defense system. They worked, fought, and helped protect territory. This laid the foundation for what would later become organized Black military communities. These early escapes and alliances show something important. Resistance was not always direct confrontation. It was also movement, strategy, and positioning. Further north, in English and Dutch colonies, resistance took on different forms. In places like Virginia and New Netherland, Black people navigated a system that was still developing. In the early 1600s, racial slavery was not yet fully codified. Some Black individuals were able to gain limited freedoms, own land, or negotiate their status. But as time went on, laws began to change. By the mid-1600s, colonies like Virginia began passing laws that made slavery permanent and hereditary. These laws removed pathways to freedom and tightened control. And as control increased, so did resistance. In 1644 in New Netherland, what would later become New York, Black men petitioned the Dutch government for partial freedom. Some had fought in colonial conflicts and used that service as leverage. This wasn't a revolt in the traditional sense, but it was resistance through negotiation and pressure. They forced the system to respond. At the same time, smaller acts of resistance were happening constantly: work slowdowns, escapes, sabotage, and quiet organization. These actions rarely made it into official records, but they were part of daily life under oppression. By the 1660s, the system had become more rigid. Laws were clearer, control was stronger. But so was the understanding among Black people. This system was not temporary, and it would not change without resistance.
If you've made it this far, you're not just watching. You're following Black American warrior history in its full timeline. On Class with SKEUL, every episode connects, showing resistance, strategy, and power across generations. If you're tapped in, support the channel. Hit like so more people see this. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Turn on the notification bell so you're there when it drops. And share this with someone who needs the full story, not just pieces. This isn't random content. It's a structured history. Stay locked in. The next episode goes deeper.
As the system of slavery became more defined in the late 1600s, resistance became more organized. In 1663 in Virginia, one of the earliest planned uprisings took shape. Known as the Gloucester County Conspiracy, it involved black laborers and European indentured servants. Their goal was clear: rise up against the colonial elite and challenge the system that controlled them. This wasn't just frustration, it was planning. It showed that people were thinking beyond survival. They were thinking about changing the structure itself. The plan was discovered before it could be carried out, and it was violently suppressed. But the attempt itself is what matters. It revealed unity across racial and class lines, something colonial authorities feared. After this, laws became even stricter. Colonial governments began to separate black and white laborers more aggressively, creating divisions to prevent future alliances. But even with increased control, resistance continued. In 1687 in Massachusetts, records show another planned uprising involving enslaved black people. Like many others, it was stopped before it could fully develop. In 1690, similar fears emerged in New York, where officials believed enslaved people were organizing another revolt. Whether fully formed or not, the concern itself shows a pattern. Plans were forming. Ideas were spreading. By this time, slavery was no longer a loosely defined system. It was structured, enforced, and expanding rapidly, especially in southern colonies like South Carolina. Plantation economies were growing, the demand for labor increased, and with it, the conditions became harsher. But so did the resistance. What began as scattered acts, escape, negotiation, survival, was now becoming something more coordinated. People were learning from each other, adapting strategies, watching how systems operated and where they could be challenged. By the end of the 1600s, the foundation for large-scale revolts had already been built. The knowledge was there, the intent was there, the will to resist had never left. And soon, that resistance would take a form that could no longer be ignored. Because in 1739, in South Carolina, everything would change. The Stono Rebellion was coming, and it would become one of the most powerful uprisings in early American history.
If you made it to the end, stay tapped in. Like this video so it reaches more people. Subscribe to Class with SKEUL for the full timeline. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Drop a comment. What stood out, what should be added, and what you want covered next.